told to be here at 9 o'clock. We have 50 officers out there to test.
For how many vacancies?
8. We have 5 men, 3 women. Promoted to inspector out of this group.
3 women.
Do you object, Inspector?
Now, who might you be?
Oh, this is Ms. Gray, the mayor's staff. She's here to monitor these examinations. This is Inspector Callahan.
Oh, yes, I know something of Inspector Callahan. And I'd like to tell you, Inspector, it is the mayor's intention that this department be brought more into line with the mainstream of 20th century thought.
Just how does he figure to do that, Mrs. Gray?
Well, for one thing, His Honor intends to broaden the areas of participation for women in the police force.
That sounds very stylish.
I think he also said something about winnowing the Neanderthals out of the department.
Well, I guess we better get on with it. Next applicant. Officer Moore?
Yes, sir.
As you know, this is the final stage in your examination. It's a rather informal test in which we try to get some line on your ability to think on your feet, your reaction to stress and pressure, your ability to apply the law in a hypothetical situation, and so on. Okay?
Yes, sir.
How long have you been on the force?
9 years.
What department?
Mainly personnel and records.
Personnel and records.
Yes, sir.
Harry?
Have you any questions for the applicant?
Questions? How fast do you run the 100?
Come on, Callahan. You know how this board functions.
All right, sorry. You know that if you make inspector under the mayor's new guidelines, that you might just be out riding in a police car?
Yes, sir. That's what I'm hoping for.
Well, Officer Moore, maybe you'll tell us all here about your most important felony arrest.
I've never made a felony arrest.
Well, maybe you'll tell us about your best misdemeanor arrest then.
I've never made a misdemeanor arrest either.
Then what the hell gives you the right to become an inspector when there's men have been out there on the street for 10 or 15 years?
The woman's place is in the home. Is that what you're trying to say?
What do you think this is, some kind of encounter group? I want to know what Officer Moore is going to do when somebody points a gun at her and says, "Hit the deck, you son of a
You're
bitch!"
just deliberately trying to fail this candidate, aren't you, Callahan?
Well, if she fails out there, she gets her ass blown off.
It's my ass. And, my hard luck.
Except that out there, you're going to have a partner. And if you get blown away, he gets blown away with you. And that's a hell of a price to pay for being stylish.
Are you finished with the questioning, Callahan?
Hypothetical situation. All right, I'm standing on a street corner, and Mrs. Gray there comes up and propositions me. If I come home with her for $5, she'll put on an exhibition with a Shetland pony.
If this is your idea of humor, Inspector.
All right, what are you trying to do here, Callahan?
I'm just trying to find out if anybody in this room knows what the hell law is being broken besides cruelty to animals.
That's a conspiracy under Title 7, Section 182, Paragraph 1 of the California State Penal Code. A conspiracy to commit a misdemeanor is in fact a felony, and according to People versus Bashor, 1965...
Yes, that's right. Good answer. Thank you, Officer Moore. You'll be notified of your grade. We're told to be here at 9 o'clock. We have 50 officers out there to test.
For how many vacancies?
8. With 5 men, 3 women. Voted to inspector out of this group.
Engineers, we are live again. How you been? Missed y'all. So we're going to run through my presentation of how DEI ruined games and your life. My mic is sagging. It happens to all of us when you get a little older. Your microphone doesn't stand up quite as stiff as it used to. Yeah, it just keeps dropping. Give me one sec here, people. What's going on out there? Anyone in chat? Say hey, hey. I think we're live everywhere. Okay, so I was like born a gamer. We had, I think it was Magnavox, Pong, when I was like almost too young to remember it. And then we had an Atari 2600, like the weekend it came out that you could first get it in Sweden. Lived in Sweden at the time. And been a gamer all my life, but as you get into adulthood, that kind of falls off. But I'm a gamer at heart, so I follow gaming news extremely closely. Gaming tech, new releases, reviews, all that kind of stuff. And with a bit of a lag, you could see the same social deconstructionism going on in gaming that you could see in film and television and society. And it's hit the boiling point now where gamers are just not having it anymore. But I think most gamers think that it's like, you know, these hippy dippies that get hired at game developer companies, yada yada, you know, and you know, they're getting in there and it's kind of like, you know, ruining their games. It's just kind of an extension of, you know, bunch of hippies out there in the cities, and they're, you know, they're voting in your Bidens, and they want Hillary and stuff like that, and Kamala, and they're you know, they're messing up your games a bit, whatever. But I'm here to prove that this is the end of a 70-year conspiracy to take over all media, to take over society. Without any further ado, let's get into it. Are you guys getting a nice chill beat in the background? Should be. There we go. Nice jazz guitar. All right, how DEI ruined games and your life. How games are being targeted by a 70-year-old conspiracy to destroy the Republic. First off, I think I was very sensitive to it because I'm a kid of the 70s. And that was a raging era post-hippie 60s of affirmative action, which is DEI. We've already been through this entire argument, and this was lighting up the headlines back in the day. Affirmative action, all the same arguments. We need to have more representation, with more conservative voices saying, well, you can't just hire people because color of their skin or their sex. And I found this great clip that illustrates it. Let's watch it.
Promoted to inspector out of this group.
3 women.
Do you object, Inspector?
Now, who might you be?
Oh, this is Ms. Gray of the mayor's staff. She's here to monitor these examinations. This is Inspector Callahan.
Oh, yes, I know something of Inspector Callahan. And I'd like to tell you, Inspector, it is the mayor's intention that this department be brought more into line with the mainstream of 20th century thought.
Just how does he figure to do that, Mrs. Gray?
Well, for
You catch that?
for one thing.
He was introduced as Ms. Gray, and he said Mrs. Gray. And she has a little hesitation. This is a really well done scene. Gonna move it to the center.
His Honor intends to broaden the areas of participation for women in the police force.
That sounds very stylish.
I think he also said something about winnowing the Neanderthals out of the department.
Well, I guess we better get on with it. Next applicant. Officer Moore?
Yes, sir.
As you know, this is the final stage in your examination. It's a rather informal test in which we try to get some line on your ability to think on your feet, your reaction to stress and pressure,
Your ability to apply the law in a hypothetical situation and so on, okay?
Yes, sir.
Cagney and Lacey.
How long have you been on the force?
9 years.
This is
What
their
department?
first role.
Mainly personnel and records.
Personnel and records.
Yes, sir.
Harry?
Have you any questions for the applicant?
Questions? How fast do you run the 100?
Come on, Callahan. You know how this board functions.
All right, sorry. You know that if you make inspector under the mayor's new guidelines, that you might just be out riding in a police car?
Yes, sir. That's what I'm hoping for.
Well, Officer Moore, maybe you'll tell us all here about...
Turning up the music to try to avoid a copyright strike. We'll see how we do.
your most important felony arrest.
I've never made a felony arrest.
Well, maybe you'll tell us about your best misdemeanor arrest then.
I've never made a misdemeanor arrest either.
Then what the hell gives you the right to become an inspector when there's men have been out there on the street for 10 or 15 years?
The woman's place is in the home. Is that what you're trying to say?
You think this is some kind of encounter group? I want to know what Officer Moore is going to do when somebody points a gun at her and says, "Hit the deck, you son of a
You're
bitch!"
just deliberately trying to fail this candidate, aren't you, Callahan?
Well, if she fails out there, she gets her ass blown off.
It's my ass. And, my hard luck.
Except that out there, you're going to have a partner. And if you get blown away, he gets blown away with you. And that's a hell of a price to pay for being stylish.
Are you finished with the questioning, Callahan?
Hypothetical situation, huh? All right, I'm standing on the street corner, and Mrs. Gray there comes up and propositions me. If I come home with her for $5, she'll put on an exhibition with a Shetland pony.
If this is your idea of humor, Inspector.
All right, what are you trying to do here, Callahan?
I'm just trying to find out if anybody in this room knows what the hell law is being broken besides cruelty to animals.
That's a conspiracy under Title 7, Section 182, Paragraph 1 of the California State Penal Code. A conspiracy to commit a misdemeanor is, in fact, a felony. And according to People versus Bashor, 1965...
Yes, that's right. Good answer. Thank you, Officer Moore. You'll be notified of your grade.
So people debate a lot whether the message in the movies of Dirty Harry is whether he's just a complete, dinosaur asshole, and especially Clint Eastwood. Was he down with this kind of thinking, or was he playing the opposite? In the movie, she goes on to be an excellent cop, of course. So that's 1972. So they were well advanced into arguments over affirmative action by 1972, 52 years ago, which will get me to my point. But I think I'm going to rename this. That's a hell of a price to pay for being stylish. Stylish. You guys are going to help me write this thing. There we go. Okay, let's step through it. We're going to connect all of this back to communism and Maoism. So by the 60s, it was apparent to everyone involved, all the Western socialists, that they were going to have a hell of a time selling communism over here due to how Soviet Union and China went down. There was no way you're going to be able to sell it to people who are becoming independently wealthy, really, in the Western world, especially America. The rise of the middle class made communism a disgusting proposition. It only works for poor people.
In your view, was or was not communism a catastrophic failure?
Total failure.
Total failure.
Total.
So
And that's a big socialist, that guy.
Lies that both alienated people but created an elite that by the end of the thing no longer believed in the system itself, or even thought they were doing better by being crooks than by just, say, moving to Switzerland and being an upper middle class individual.
So we're at the end of World War II, moving into the 50s, and people are realizing that they're just not going to be able to sell communism, at least the way Marx wrote it. Until a couple of guys had the intuition to move the whole operation into education. This became really heavy with the Frankfurt School, which I wrote here. You could think of if Karl Marx and Freud got to decide our socio-political structure. Make this window big. So let's see what the mainstream line on this is anyway. Frankfurt School is a school of thought in sociology and critical philosophy. It is associated with the Institute for Social Research, founded at the Goethe University Frankfurt. Formed during the Weimar Republic, during the European interwar period, so this is before World War II. Supremely anti-fascist, right? So, which is like a cool thing historically, but is the bedrock for modern quote-unquote anti-fascism, which is, of course, fully fascist. One of the big thinkers that comes out of, excuse me, got to get control of my presentation. Their big contribution was critical theory. In critical theory, you don't argue points on the normal merits. You don't argue on logic. You argue from a point of power. And whatever people are proposing, say the American Constitution and freedom of speech are great, you start from the proposition that freedom of speech is dangerous, and you start arguing from there. This led to critical legal studies, and some of the huge people of the 70s and 80s, Derek Bell, Kimberly Crenshaw, created critical race theory, which most of you should have heard of by now, and the wonderful intersectionality, which is all about the problems of every race and marginalized person, quote unquote. They're all tied together by power and lack of power. Gloria Jean Ladson Billings introduced into the universities critical race theory. The big proponent after the war of critical theory was Herbert Marcuse. And this guy, some of his works, I should have put some of the works in here, so maybe I will add them in. This is the guy that we get the idea that everything that disagrees with your position is fascist. So, as I say here, critical theory and Marcuse give us the notion that anything is not their opinion is fascist. Sound familiar? Gamers, huh? Star Wars fans? Anybody, slightly to the right of Karl Marx? Does this sound familiar? You don't like something, so you must be racist. You must be fascist. This comes from Herbert Marcuse. Now, I'll bring up his Wikipedia page, just because I can't remember his really famous work. What's it called? Tolerance. Bibliography. Repressive Tolerance. Right there. There we go. Repressive tolerance. It's in works like this where the notion of, do we put up with these people? I got to get a link into Trudeau saying these people, they're racists. How long do we tolerate them? This is all Marcusean thinking. And in the 60s, big leaders like Angela Davis, Abby Hoffman of the hippie countercultural independence movements grabbed on to critical theory. And then tied in deeply with Marcuse and a Canadian, friggin' Canadians. What's with the Canadians? Canadians, eh? So you're going to see these maple leafs everywhere. Because Canada, we've done a job on the world. I apologize for Canada. Marcuse found the works of Paulo Freire, a Brazilian socialist, who created critical pedagogy. And Henry Giroux, a leading socialist thinker in Canada and America in the university, brought him over to the circuit and his books and heavily publicized him. And he was a sensation within teachers' colleges and universities. Critical pedagogy teaches that the person's existence is more important than learning logical things. So you don't teach kids 2 + 2 = 4. You teach them that their repression by the system is more important. Their lived experience is more important than actually memorizing times tables or learning history. It's their lived experience that is the truly important thing. Sound familiar? Sure does. Social emotional learning. So this is what kids have been learning almost secretly. Like we've only become aware of this in the last few years, but this has been being taught to teachers and then to children under the table for decades. This is why we woke up one day and everybody's insane. In Canada, we have SOGI, which is the trans rights way of teaching, and this all gets taught to children. None of it was voted on, none of it was talked about. It just started in teachers' colleges and universities with critical pedagogy and then broke down through it. To the teachers' colleges, to the universities, it just said. Then, as I state here, nearly every person working in high-concept companies and publishers, like video game publishers, video game development, film, TV, media, went through a fully Marxist, Maoist, social emotional learning, critical race theory dominated school system, especially in post-secondary education. Nowadays, this is full in from day one on elementary school. And then video games eventually became the #1 entertainment medium on the planet. Then you throw in the COVID explosion in video game sales, and it's the biggest thing that you can sell right now. And most importantly, it's how children, especially boys, are taught modern mythology. We used to do it with books and plays, then we did it with movies, now we do it with games. This created a whole side industry of DEI and ESG lobbying, which is, as many of us know, forced in by BlackRock, the biggest investor in the world.
You now make a point of that's an investment criteria for you.
Well, behaviors are going to have to change, and this is one thing we're asking companies. You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock we are forcing behaviors. 54% of the incoming class are women. We added 4 more points in terms of diverse employment this year. And what we're doing internally is if you don't achieve these levels of impact, your compensation could be impacted, okay?
We're doing the same thing.
And so it's just, you have to force behaviors. And if you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted. And that's not recruiting, it is development, as Ken said. And ultimately, it's still going to take time, but I am just as much shocked as Ken is that we have not seen more opportunities. And we're going to have to force change.
So there it is. This is undeniable. BlackRock is one of the companies that leads how everyone invests in the stock market and makes money. And this is like during Trump 1, maybe the end of Obama 2, when he's speaking. Just recently announced that they're walking away from all this, at least publicly, but we'll get back to that. So, this is Nudge Behavior. Nudge is a book written by Cass Sunstein and Richard Thaler. Why can't I grab the corner of this? This was a huge bestseller, highly influential in politics and universities. And we covered this in The Reality Behind Conspiracy Theories and Domestic Terrorism, first film I directed for Canadian Patriot Review. I suggest you watch it. Basically says that there was a 20-year campaign to make the word conspiracy into a bad name, and that's used to defend this. So if you say, hey, well, BlackRock's making everybody do this, well, you're just a conspiracy theorist. And it's all been carefully orchestrated. Environmental and social governance. This is the European name mostly for this kind of thing. And you've just got these huge, absolutely huge initiatives. ISO 26000, PRI, all these companies you've never heard of that are absolutely driving the stock market towards forced diversity hiring. McKinsey Canadian? I think McKinsey might be Canadian. I'd have to check up on that. Biggest PR company in the world. All diversity, all sustainability, all day long. There's McKinsey's sustainability, and it ends up with, the media is the message. Here, the governance is the message. Leads to films as the message and games as the message. So, you got a few power players in DEI and consulting, including for games, the Center for Digital Media, hit detection, another huge one. This is where they funnel all the DEI funds through. And the real monster that no one is talking about is GLAAD. GLAAD, who we've known for years, probably came to most of the forefront during the AIDS epidemic, quote unquote, during the 80s. GLAAD has turned into an absolute terror organization. Funding goes through them to smaller groups that the funding goes to for movies, for film, for TV, for video games. GLAAD is basically now declaring what people do in media, and it is absolutely wild. Which leads to specific video game consultancy companies like Sweet Baby Inc., yet another Canadian masterpiece. Sorry, everyone. I know Canadians are famous for saying sorry, but I'm going to apologize for Canada here.
If you're a creative working many years.
So here's the CEO of Sweet Baby Inc. This is a company that other video game developers can hire to clean up and diversify their scripts.
If you're a creative working in AAA, which I did for many, many years, put this stuff up to your higher ups. And if they don't see the value in what you're asking for when you ask for consultants, when you ask for research, go have a coffee with your marketing team and just terrify them with the possibility of what's going to happen if they don't give you what you want.
So you see, they know it. The people that present this stuff, they're trying to say they just want fairness. They don't. It's totalitarian. Now we got to cover Gamergate 1 a little bit. This was leading into Trump 1. It had a huge explosion of activity around this girl. Canadian Zoe Quinn, who was caught sleeping with game developers to get good reviews for her games. When it was found out, all sorts of YouTubers and bloggers and stuff commented on this and how unfair it was, and then wondered what was going on with video game journalism. How fair is it if you can sleep around to get a good review? But they turned that story into women are being attacked in video games. And that's still, if you go to Wikipedia now and look up Gamergate, you will see it listed unequivocally as a hate movement against women in video games. But it gets super weird. So once the spotlight was on her and she was looking for a way out, she accused a fellow Canadian indie developer, really nerdy, nice dude, of abuse. Accused of abusing him. And people did the research on this and found out that it was some of the allegations she were making were absolutely impossible. The way that her Twitter posts and messaging and stuff lined up, some of the allegations didn't make any sense. But this guy, Alec Haloka, who is, he was like one of those like deeply kind of, deep nerd, kind of a troubled guy, very awkward. Well, that led to him killing himself. Now we get into here. Let's see, have I done this right? You've got this ghosts thing going on. Weird ghosts. Which leads to baby ghosts, which directly funds Sweet Baby Inc. And if you remember, our poor man, Alec Haloka, his sister is the executive director of Baby Ghosts. Eileen Haloka. Eileen, she is a queer and disabled white settler living on Treaty 1 territory in Winnipeg. They are a writer. So you get an idea of what Baby Ghosts is all about. And so that's her brother that was sleeping with Zoe, who made fake allegations about him, over which he offed himself. It directly leads to Baby Ghosts, which directly leads to Sweet Baby Inc. And there we are. So every game that Sweet Baby Inc. has worked on has been an abominable failure, like an unparalleled failure. But they're still getting hired. And the narrative is, whenever someone points out their involvement, that person's racist. Right now I'm forgetting where we go in this. This is exciting. I can't wait to see what we do. Okay, so this leads us, I gave you that background of Gamergate 1 from 2016 to Gamergate 2. Gamergate 2.0, which is going on right now. Oh, what have I done here? Okay, so I didn't quite get this. So to explain this, Sweet Baby Inc. got exposed, especially with that video I just showed you of the director talking about scaring companies. And a Brazilian guy named Cabrutus made on his Steam gaming page, you're allowed to make curated lists. And so he made a list of games that he's discovered Sweet Baby Inc. is involved in. You can go here and find a list of all the current games that Sweet Baby Inc. has been involved with ruining, and to help you stay away from them if you want. When Sweet Baby Inc. found out about this, one of their employees, I'll bring the article up here. One of Sweet Baby Inc.'s employees went on a campaign to try to cancel Cabrutus's account on Steam, meaning he could never play any of his video games that he bought ever again. They tried to get him canceled on X and all this stuff. I suggest you read this from That Park Place, an amazing website that follows this kind of thing. And this kicks off the battle of Gamergate 2.0. And there's so much to go into here. Oh my God. So this whole section is going to have to be its own video, because Sweet Baby Inc. and their CEO, Kim Belair, who we saw talking about scaring executives into listening to them and doing their fourth DEI, ties into all these other companies. Screw Attack, a big podcast on YouTube, to Wings. Wings turns out to be a subsidiary of Landfall Games from Sweden, who Sweden's just about as bad as Canada, I gotta say. You know, I feel better about Canada when I start looking at Sweden and Norway and all of this. They as well are running a shady thing where they're running all these shell companies. And people have done the legwork to discover there's all these shell companies that are kind of self-publishing, almost money laundering, through this Wings organization to make games that are woke as hell, and they don't need to make money anymore. You wonder how they make money with these games that no one buys? It's through these crazy operations. If you want to learn more, find Master of the TDS on Twitter. Excellent. He's done all the research. Really amazing stuff. And it ties Landfall, Riot Games, Wings, so much.
And I've also been on the advisory board of a few funding bodies, including the Wings Fund, which specializes in grants for women and marginalized people working in games and funding projects that come to us through there.
So there's no denying this. There's no conspiracy theory stuff. That's the CEO of Sweet Baby Inc. And they're running this giant operation. So they've figured out how to bypass us. You can now make a game without giving the slightest crap whether anybody buys it or not, because you're going to get money anyway, because you're part of this giant GLAD, Larry Fink, BlackRock, ESG, Soji thing where you're going to get money anyway. Everybody's going to be fine, and everybody's got checks. It doesn't matter. Let's take a look at the consequences to the games that do need to sell of working with Sweet Baby Inc. And you can see this giant tentacle octopus growing out. Sweet Baby Inc. has worked with all of these companies: Square Enix, Sony, Rocksteady, Arcane. And you can see here this is what the modern staff of these companies looks like now. You guys notice anything different from what video game companies used to look like in the 90s and early 2000s? Ooh, that's an especially good one. Xbox. So here is the collection of games that we know that Sweet Baby and or other ESG DEI companies have worked on, and it's a rogues gallery of failure. The first big crack started to show with Forspoken, which was by a Japanese company, Square Enix, who the Japanese have been largely immune to this stuff, but they're starting to fall too. This was a brutally bad
He's
game.
a fucking idiot.
I
hate this character. Great start.
These writers should go on strike to get paid better.
Brick attack.
Oh,
what?
They actually said what you just said.
Did they really?
Yeah, he was like, "You're breaking me."
Dude, the Holland Tunnel.
Home.
Who leaves a newborn baby on the street?
Right?
And my name is Frey Holland.
Well, at least it wasn't the Queens Midtown Tunnel. That would have been an awful last name.
I was joking!
For those at home, Lyle's eyes just popped out of his. Lyle's eyes are dangling out of his head right now. For those wondering what that noise was.
I swear to God, I didn't know that when I said it.
So this was the general reaction to this game. The writing was terrible. They made this insufferable black teen girl the hero of this game. She's just given powers out of nowhere, and she's pissy about everything. This game was a massive failure.
This is the best game ever.
Homer! Girl, come on, we gotta go!
How did that happen?
Look for Homer, leave the money. Quickly.
Just pick up the fuck. She's gonna say, I have to find Homer first.
Gotta find Homer first.
Oh my God. Throw it over your shoulder, dude.
What a stupid bitch.
In the time it took you to say that.
This is fucking insane! Imagine if in Star Wars, Luke Skywalker for the first 15 minutes was going, this cannot be happening. A droid? A guy with a scary helmet? What is going on?
This cannot be fucking real.
Listen to me, Frey.
How the hell do you know my name?
We are bonded.
Bonded? What do you mean bonded?
I don't like it any more than you do, but we have to work together.
We've predicted a dialogue like 3 times now, so I'm waiting for him to say that.
You can see you're stuck with me, and I with you.
God damn it! How does that keep happening?
Why?
It's happened like 5 times now! I wish I saw a dragon.
Is that a motherfucking dragon?
Oh my God. I like how she goes from going, I'm getting amazing air, this is awesome, to going, this place is fun.
She goes, this place is for broken.
Is there nowhere that's not, like, broken by this shit?
You are in our realm. Wouldn't you like to say, not gonna happen?
That's not a thing that's happening.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Lyle.
Oh.
None of us expected that.
So you get the idea. It was a joke. It was an absolute joke. This was the meme.
Did I just do that?
Well, definitely with my assistance.
I did not just do that.
We did.
I just moved shit with my mind.
Perhaps our connection has somehow awoken some abilities.
I just moved shit with my mind.
I just keep hearing I.
I just moved shit with my freaking mind!
So how did that game do? This is the Steam charts. It shows how many people are playing a game. This is maybe 2 months ago. 84 people. This is a AAA game. This cost upwards of $80 million to make. At its peak, it had 13,000 people playing on PC. So you would have had some more certainly on consoles and stuff, but this is unheard of, seeing double-digit numbers of people playing a AAA massive release. I guess we got to get to the Queen now. Concord. This was supposed to be Sony's Star Wars, according to the CEO. And it was just characters that looked like this. Look at it. Look at it. They thought this was going to be Star Wars. Like, what is he? Grandma in purple. Take note of the purple and pink accents, please, against the blue, azure blue, and oranges. And the studio closed down after they released it because there are the numbers. This game, not only is it a full AAA production at $100 million-ish, Sony liked it so much they bought the development studio for $200 million. Then soaked another 4 years of development into it, so no one knows, but the guesses are that this cost getting into the realm of $500 million, and no more than 700 people played this game. As you can see from 2 months ago, it still was technically available. One person was playing. It's a multiplayer shooter. You're supposed to have hundreds of thousands of people playing this. Sony removed it from sale and gave everyone a refund after 2 weeks. That is verified Sweet Baby Inc. involvement. Also, Suicide Squad. Verified Sweet Baby Inc. involvement with characters like this. Ms. Freeze. Not Mr. Freeze, the classic cartoon hero, but Ms. Freeze, available with the LGB skin. This stuff is real. I swear it's real. And she's a lesbian. Just throwing that in there. Yeah, she's a lesbian. Anyone noticing this purple, pink, orange thing going on? We're gonna deal with a bunch more of that. When the game was for sale on Steam, the company tagged it with these. You can see the arrows pointing here. I'm going to move this so it's out of my avatar. Tagged with capitalism, online co-op, and LGBTQ+. And here are the numbers for Suicide Squad from 2 months ago. Right now it's damn near 0. So again, another game that took over half a decade to make hundreds of millions of dollars. And even woke critics hated it. It was that bad. Redfall is another one. I won't do too many of these right now. You're getting the picture. So 28 people playing this one a couple months ago. Probably 0 now. Another AAA release. That studio was shut down. Dragon Age the Veilguard, one of the more recent flops. This is a series with 2 video games in it that had tens of millions of sales for each release. 4,000 people playing it a couple months ago. Now these numbers are in the hundreds. The game died shortly after release. An utter failure. This one is famous for including top surgery scars in a medieval fantasy game. So while everyone has cool powers and stuff, this is taking place in a medieval setting. There's no modern surgery, there's no lasers, there's nothing like that. But you can set up your character with top surgery scars. This one's worth covering, the Norwegian Dustborn. Is perhaps the wokest game ever released.
Fella you're with, the black kid, dresses like a writer. Does he know anything?
You are racist.
So you literally, your character literally gets triggered, and that makes her superpowers activate to call people racists and fascists. And there are the player numbers for that. No more than 83 people played it. Considering there's several dozen people at the studio, that's probably mostly the studio and their family and friends playing this game. And it just goes on and on and on. Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance had DEI consultancy. There's the player numbers there, 10 people playing. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, it's being held up as if it was some kind of triumph. Seems like it's an okay game, actually, but it's another $100 million game. It's got 1,000 people playing. This unsustainable. The whole game, Indiana Jones gets told what to do by his woman companion. Here's the staff introducing us to the new... You think this guy grew up with Indiana Jones? Avowed is the latest bomb to come out from a huge studio, renowned studio for making some of the best RPGs in history. Same thing, LGB tags, politics, political, in a fantasy game, as it's listed on Steam.
DMs open, big black priority, do not apply if you're not a minority.
Yes, we're gonna watch that. This one is famous for the art director from Avowed coming out and calling out Elon Musk, and he actually got noticed by Elon Musk. And then when everybody started investigating him, he has tweets up in public saying that he'll hire you if you're black over white people because he wants white people to be replaced. And that's where this song comes from. We'll listen to it. It's great.
DMs open, big black priority, do not apply if you're not a minority. Woke dev wants to make people mad, from an echo chamber calling other people sad. Every post another confessional, man, how many times we need to teach you this lesson? That didn't happen, and if it did, it's not that bad. Version developer versus anti-woke, Chad, racist, political, don't forget lazy, Elon, derangement, make people crazy. Desperate soul agenda injected, Matt want attention, get this infected.
Excuse me, and it just goes on and on and on with Star Wars Outlaws from the soon to be shut down Ubisoft. Same thing. I mean, this is a massive Star Wars game, and just like 1,000 people playing it. Nothing. Saints Row, a really famous series. They rebooted it with a bunch of 20-somethings. Notice that purple and pink going on. Scenes like this.
Cool, I'm guessing eventually
everything smells
become a site.
amazing, Kev.
You know what would make it smell even better?
Hey man, if you want a $300 waffle maker, you can buy with the exposure the idols pay you in. Don't expect us to chip in.
I've told you before, the idols are trying to build a post-capitalist society where money is not a concept.
Yeah? Then why don't you go run off and join the commune?
I'm into showering. Are you gonna help me get the waffle maker or not?
As an investor, I don't like wasting money.
You're wearing a fucking bow tie.
Okay, I will throw in $20 for a waffle maker.
Nina?
Good for 10?
Who helped you move your forged paintings last month?
Fine, 15.
What sort of waffle maker can I get for $35?
Presumably one that makes fucking waffles?
Hey, the wage slave is back.
How was your first day? Were the other mercenaries nice to you?
You know, as far as hired killers go, I'd give them a 7.
You look like you could use a mukmosa.
Thanks, Eli.
Seriously, how's the job?
It's the murder business. The fundamentals don't change.
I don't even know what a mugmosa is. I'm really
I can
glad.
tell you love it.
Okay. I don't have to love it. I have to pay my student loans.
Amen.
So I'm guessing that means the pay's good.
So they took it from this cool like Grand Theft Auto thing to a bunch of kids complaining about their student loans. How did that game do? Oh, right, 200 people playing. Oops, that studio shut down. Unknown 9 Awakening. This is a wild one. Nobody knows this even existed. We'll skip right to the player numbers. 23 people playing. They had this thing mapped out to be this giant like content thing. They had comics, they had manga, they had anime, they had episodic content all lined up for this, and 23 people played it. Woo! And you can look back to maybe the start of this modern pink and purple and orange revolution with Battlefield, which is like 95% a dude game, shooting shit and blowing it up. And here was the trailer for it. So that is, indeed, your eyes don't lie, an active infantry redhead girl with some kind of robotic amputee arm. And everybody just laughed their asses off at this trailer. So what was the reaction from, is this EA? I think it's EA, right? Yeah. So they reacted by saying everyone that doesn't like it's a racist, and this is their release party for the game, where they've got quotes. You see the quotes happening here? White men, white men, white men. Feminazis are trying to rewrite history. What the fuck was the developers thinking? Genderfield 5. With the hashtag everyone's battlefield. And the game was a massive flop. This is one of the biggest first-person shooters in the industry for decades, and it was a massive flop. They learned their lesson, but they still think it's all racist. So what we need to look at now is bisexual lighting. If you haven't heard of bisexual lighting, don't worry, I hadn't either. And it is truly, really a thing, as proven by this Wikipedia article. Bisexual lighting is the simultaneous use of pink, purple, and blue lighting and is used to represent bisexual characters. It has been used in studio lighting for film and television and has been observed in the cinematography of various films, because it resembles the bisexual flag. And then now we go back and we look through the stylings of all these woke games that utterly failed. Oh, that's a tiny little picture. The Suicide Squad. Anyone seeing a pattern? Flintlock. This is another game that came out and absolutely splattered on the pavement. 15 people playing it. Same skinny, uninteresting black girl with, shaved head. Pinks and purples. Battlefield, which we just watched. Dragon Age, the Veilguard, the massive top surgery failure. And this is the director who knows a lot about top surgery. This is a man. Was fired after the game flopped. Immediately hired by some other company. Saints Row that we just saw. These are some of the early progenitors of the pink and purple. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. This is inside code from people who went to university and were steeped in this stuff. And they're speaking in code to each other, and they're having a laugh at the rest of us as we just try to play our video games and have fun. This is South of Midnight, the next giant flop that's going to come out, with skinny, uninteresting black girl with shaved head and cornrows. And we can't forget Concord, the biggest video game failure of all time. We already looked at these beautiful people. All that pink and purple. Avowed, which is the latest flop, is just steeped in this stuff too. And this is from the art director himself, the man who insulted Elon Musk and Trump and anyone that follows him, and he's going to teach you and he's going to show you. Well, his video game flopped. If there's any justice in the world, he'll be fired. Even Final Fantasy, again from Square Enix, the big Japanese company, starting to show a lot of this stuff in their game, and this game was a flop too. And I bounced back to Dragon Age to show us about Corinne Bush. While this game dropped, utterly failed, everyone was laughing at it. everyone is hating on it, and you've got quote-unquote video game journalists, video game publications coming out and publishing trite like this. Corinne Bush is the ruler of RPGs, role-playing games, while her game is failing. Conqueror of haters. And you can see here, just another example for Dragon Age Veilguard. All of the big video game review journals, they give it in the high 80s. User score, 3.8 out of 10. And that just keeps happening. With several of them giving 9s or 10s out of 10s for this horrible flop of a game. No one's really ever seen anything like this. You know, generally speaking, even bad AAA video games would, you know, you get 10,000, 100,000 players, sell 1 million copies, you know, at least at first, until people realize it sucks. Now people are just, they are wholly rejecting this look, this ideal, this philosophy. And there's a whole bunch more coming down the pipeline, since video games take anywhere from 5 to 10 years to make. There's so much more. We've got direct involved Sweet Baby Inc. games, Assassin's Creed Shadows. I don't even want to go into this one. It just never ends. This is the first Assassin's Creed that was set in Japan, and they screwed everything up. You got a bunch of white people in Montreal trying to get deep into Japanese culture. The Assassin's Creed players were super excited because they're finally going to get a Japanese assassin game. So you're going to be a ninja this time, right? Well, no, you're going to be a black African man or a Japanese girl. Those are your two choices for the character. And it just goes downhill from there. They horribly screwed up Japanese cultural systems.
Did you see Ubisoft decided to release Assassin's Creed Shadows on the anniversary of one of Japan's most horrific terror events in their history? No. No, they did not.
A bit of context, because this is literally the 5th time Ubisoft messed up portraying Japan.
The katana and Yasuke's mask, or even the artwork from the game, doesn't it look exactly like the sword of Zoro, a character from One Piece? And then are those the exact same symbols?
As it turns out, Yasuke is holding One Piece Zoro's sword. Then they sent out promotional material to Japanese streamers.
Unfortunately, Ubisoft forgot that these people can actually read Japanese, and the streamers that received it were quick to point out how these strange symbols made no sense.
Then they straight up yoinked national treasures, which were labeled as not allowed for commercial use, and promptly added them as assets in the game. Then they copied a World War II historic remnant, which is one of a kind, as a promotional asset.
So we dropped a nuclear fucking bomb on them. This thing right here was still left standing. They're using a remnant of World War II.
This last one was so bad they literally had to put out a full apology. And now, finally, they delayed the game to the day of literally the biggest post-World War II tragedy for Japan.
I don't believe it. The sarin gas attack in Japan, perpetrated in the 20th of March, 1995. And when does Assassin's Creed come out now? The 20th of March, 2025. 30th anniversary. They just can't stop. It's so fucking fun.
And it's so emblematic of this woke movement that people who think they're doing like the best thing to help the marginalized and all this stuff, and they're so multicultural, and they're completely idiots about it. Japan was full of reaction videos to the trailers. This is one of the best.
I told you, keep walking.
So just try to be Japanese for a second. You've got like a nearly 7-foot tall black dude with a club walking into a Japanese village here that she's watching. So it's been a bit of a disaster. You had a good game about ninjas and samurais called Ghost of Tsushima a couple years ago. Guess what? The sequel? It's a chick. So the Midnight's gonna flop. Intergalactic. This is the latest one from the Last of Us people. Gonna be the hero is a bald lesbian, maybe Hispanic Asian, that acts like a man. And just look at that ratio. 2 to 1, 108,000 dislikes, and this is a month ago. Two to 1 again on the PlayStation Store. So, not looking good for the future. What do we have next? Oh, here's where we got into the Matt Hansen stuff from Avowed. Should have gone to that earlier. Maybe another video. We got stuff to cover. So the reason I'm on about this stuff is there are real dangers here. There's more than just bad video games and money being lost. Mostly we're talking about the trans stuff. We're talking about video games that are normalizing. While you're innocently making your character in a video game, you've got the option to have surgery scars. Yay, isn't that wonderful? But while we slept, there's been a pathway that's been made to get kids to accept transgenderism and sexual mutilation. This is one of the most incredible people that's involved with this.
I lost my support from the transgender community, this community that once treated me as if they were a second family to me. These people who had celebrated me the most when I first had my shot of testosterone, when I first woke up from surgery, was now turning their back on me. And they were incredibly cruel to me. They told me that I should have known better, that even though I was a teenager, I should have known exactly what I was getting myself into, that I had nobody to blame for this but myself. And they had to shut up and stop talking about this, because in just talking about the pain and regret of what I had been through and trying to warn other people of it, I was harming a whole community of young men and women who may really have needed these treatments, who are real transgender people. I was told that my experience was not common, that it was not significant, and that I should just stay quiet. I lost.
So she's amazing. She's been on Peterson as well. I highly suggest you watch Chloe Cole's interview there. There's tons of these detransitioners. I've got to bring the video in so that we can watch it. This application doesn't let you stay signed in on YouTube, but detransitioners stories, they need to be covered. And we're looking at having an entire generation of kids and gay men just having their lives destroyed while we pretend that this is normal. We had the amazing Pierre Barnes on our show. I suggest you watch this, Fighting Soji, where he exposes how they've got pornographic gay and trans books in libraries, in the schools. They deny that they have them. They're not part of the curriculum, quote unquote, but they're all there, and teachers are directing children to read them. Things like I Am Jazz, you know, this is the TLC series of a boy who wants to become a girl, and that's all gone horribly wrong. And this is all very real, and I want to call out the fence sitters. These are guys who are in the gaming scene on YouTube, and they try to stay cool with the mainstream by making fun of people who call this out. The Act Man is one of them. He makes great video game content, but he feels he must feel this internal pressure to make fun of people who call out the woke agenda, yada yada. Or shit like this guy, Thor.
So the ones that are mad are just saying that games are ruined because woke shit in the game. Stop playing those games then.
Yeah.
Literally. Why are you playing games that you're mad at?
Well, you know what, Thor? Let's just go back. Let's go back. You want us to stop playing the games? Okay. 54 people playing. 1 person playing. 2,000 people playing. 28 people playing. 4,000 playing. These are games that should have millions of people playing. 46 people playing. 10 people playing. 1,000 people playing. 1,000 people playing. You need to see more, Thor? So these guys, they try to get off on this big kind of white knight kind of, oh, you're attacking you're a bunch of racists and you've gone out of your mind. You got like the anti-woke disease. But you're wrong. So, got to cover men and women's sports. This is one of the last sections I got to fill out. And that's it. So thank you, everyone. Leave comments down below after you've seen this for anything I might have missed about this highly nuanced conversation. And